Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and everything else in between. My name is Jake Bernardes. Welcome to Risking It All again. For those of you heading to RSA like myself next week, I am not wearing this as a token gesture. I've been to the Giant Stadium enough time to have earned my cap. Hope to meet and bump into anyone who's there. If you are going to be there, drop me a message, DM me, and let me know, and let's grab a coffee or a beer. I am rolling around today interviewing the person who sets this up, right? And I think that's interesting, solely because I've met a lot and worked with a lot of founders in my life. And I always sit with one simple question: why? I've seen the sacrifice it takes on people, the impact on them, their families, their personal lives. I've seen the benefits and blessings, but it just seems such a cost when you're already in a good position. Why would you do it? And that's my question today. And it's as simple as that, no script, but I want to know kind of what they're doing and why they're doing it. So you've heard of Lilo and Stitch. It's coming to the cinema again in live action form soon. How you have a live action alien, I'm not entirely sure. But this is Linstead and Stitch. So let's bring Simon and Steve Hindle on, otherwise known as Stitch, and get the conversation going.
Great intro.
Gentlemen, hi. Did you like my Lilo and Stitch reference?
Damn, that was just next level, Jake.
I think you should use that on LinkedIn or something, like kind of put yourself into a meme.
I've never made that connection with Mr. Linstead and Lilo and Stitch. It's just,
you'll never forget it now.
An art of genius. I've got my General Grievous. I can't even point right. I've got my General Grievous Stitch over here, and my LGBT Stitches down here. I'll never fight Disney for that lawsuit. Their lawyers. It's
like when I told our friends at the CISO Society the other day that when they built a book saying "Come Find, Confide," and they based it on the picture of Where's Wally or Where's Waldo for the Americans, I was like, you should make a whole book. The immediate response I got was, we'd get sued. I was like, fair. Anyway,
it's such a shame, right? When it all enters the public domain, we can have fun with it.
I mean, I've said enough things that are controversial in my time. It doesn't matter at this point. But copyright to me is just completely pointless at this point in our world. Like, it just seems irrelevant. There's so much copying going anyway, and actually improvement of brands. We could go on a whole unrelated conversation about how China often takes historic copyrights, waits for them to expire, then improves and re-releases their own version at half the price point. I kind of think copyright should die, but that's their issue. Anyway, introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
Over to you, Stitch.
Damn it, Lilo. Okay. Linlo. I don't even know where to go with this now. It's very rare and lost words. Yeah, thanks, Jay. I appreciate being here and back on with Simon in a different guise, as you said. So yeah, my name's Steve Hindle. I was branded with the nickname Stitch when I was about 16 years of age, through no fault of my own, and lots of hospital visits. Anyway, long road for a shortcut to say, travel forwards in time, best part of like 20 odd years, 30 odd years, being a CISO several times, a CIO, head of security, physical security, cybersecurity, doing everything from kidnap and ransom negotiations to ransomware negotiations. And now, having met Mr. Linstead a few years ago, brother from another mother, all that kind of cliched stuff. Simon and I are difference makers, and that's what really drives us, and that's what we're doing now. So a new venture, a new chapter, and appreciate you giving us a platform to talk about it, Jake.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. The first three questions I ask everyone: your hero, your hobby, and the biggest risk you ever took in life.
Damn it, I'm going first. All right then. My hero is, and I've said this before several times in several platforms, my hero is my grandfather. He always was. I'll try and keep it short. He was a logistics commander in the RAF during World War II, stationed in North Africa and what was then Bombay. And he was a world traveler in an area of the country I was born in where nobody really leaves their little tiny village or their little tiny town. And so to me, I idolized my granddad, lionized him, if you will. After he left the RAF, he became the chief accountant for the northwest of England's main brewery at the time, Thwaites'. Again, for me, he was like a James Bondy kind of figure. So he taught me how to play cards. He filled me with stories of his time during World War II and the campaigns he was part of. And then after he did that, he became a business owner. He had his own little business, and subsequently retired, raised a family, had twin boys. and that was my dad and my uncle. And my entire family was raised as in the manual trade, construction trade, sheet metal working, carpentry, you name it, all good with their hands. I'm good with my hands. That's how I learned. But my granddad was different. My granddad's what inspired me to go to college, try and chase academia and all that kind of stuff, and maybe go down a completely different path to what was the rest of the family. And I failed terribly and miserably at it. Because I was not designed to work with numbers, really. I wasn't meant to be an accountant, and I learned that early on in my life. So my hero is my granddad. There you go. Next question: hobby. Hobby. I don't have much time for hobbies these days. I'll be honest with you. I read a lot. One of my favorite authors, Jonathan Mabry, is one of my favorite pastimes. Is reading his books. Around Joe Ledger and various other bits and pieces. He's a weird science writer. But I used to be a competitive shooter. I love sports shooting because I like it because it's a mind game. It's not anything else. It gives me my OCD, my noise. It brings it all to center. It's meditative. Competitive shooting, precision shooting is what I used to do. And what was the last one? Biggest risk? That's hard. I'll be honest with you. I've been in risky situations, but you said the biggest risk I've ever taken.
Yeah, consciously taken.
Right, and that makes it very different. How about this? The stupidest risk I've ever taken.
Go ahead. We'll roll with it.
Let's flip that, right? Because I think it's also the biggest risk. I almost killed myself and two friends in a car accident. So the biggest risk I ever took was driving stupidly when I was very young, and the car was airborne. It flew. It flew. It flipped. It spun out. It crashed several times and rolled. All kinds of other stuff from me and my friends being dicks, frankly. So the biggest risk I ever took was risking other people's lives, not just my own. I've been in risky situations where I've put my life on the line, but that's different. So I'll flip that and to say I learned a lot from that. Took advanced driving classes. You kind of come away from that. None of us were harmed, not a scratch. We should have been dead. Not a scratch. Car went down, blew out the back windows, crushed the back end, crushed the fuel tank, blew out the side windows, rolled several times, somersaulted. Ended up nose down in a ditch by a field, literally inches away from an exposed 240 volt electric mains cable. There's so many reasons why we should have been dead. And the only scratches we got was when one of my friends in that accident, as we had to climb out the car and gravity works and we were all kind of, which way up are we? We stood on the car to then jump onto the road because we were literally in a ditch. And in jumping, we jumped over an old hawthorn bush, and he got some scratches on his back. We had no whiplash, we had no bruises, we had no nothing. Literally should have been dead. Stupidest risk I ever made. And I want to say the last time I ever put anyone's life on the line for just shits and giggles. It was insane. I can't believe I did it. So that's the biggest risk I've ever taken. Willfully.
That got deep in a hurry.
It did.
I'll come back to those points in a bit. My granddad's a close kind of example and reference point for me as well, for various reasons, kind of what you're talking about, people breaking the norms and changing different paths for the future generations. But Simon, go ahead. Answer the three questions. Everyone on this call knows you, so let's go straight to the question.
Oh, thank goodness for that, because I really didn't know where to go with that. 3 questions. I was going to say, hi, my name's Simon, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and then say it's wrong meeting, but it might not be. There is an element of truth to that, but we won't talk about that today. My hero is an easy one. So I was adopted at a few months old, and my adopted mum is my hero. Not just for adopting me, but for putting up with me for so many years when I was a very troublesome teenager and constantly trying to set me on the right path. And unfortunately, it took until just before she passed away nearly 2 years ago now for me to finally realize that everything she'd said all my life was right. So for anyone listening out there who doesn't listen to their mums, just try it out. They actually know a lot more than you
folks.
think. Yeah. So that's my hero. My hobby, many people already know. I've got 6 children. Next question. That sounded awful, actually. I didn't mean it like that. What I meant by that was I don't really have too much time for a hobby, although we do have a TV now, so there's no chance of any more children. But the thing I like to do is get out in nature. So whether it's on my kayak, whether it's going to the beach, whether it's walking through the forest, and trying to be more present, because all of us on this call, our lives go like this all the time. So it's when I can, I try and take that time out for myself just to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
So that's my hobby,
I
think. And my biggest risk for someone covered in titanium plates and screws from all the accidents I've had from doing so many fucking stupid things throughout my life, probably the biggest risk would have been solo parachute jumping, when there wasn't really any need to do it other than I wanted to feel the thrill of it. And on my second solo jump, my chute was twisted completely when I released my canopy. And so you do your count, and it's check canopy, and you look up just expecting it to be everything's fine. And mine was like this, all twizzled up. And luckily the training you go through teach you to scissor kick your legs to get it untangled. But that was probably the biggest conscious risk that I've taken, not business wise, but personally in my life.
So there is a way to undo it if it's caught up.
Yeah, as long as you kick your legs the right way, I think, and you're lucky. And I was just fortunate. I kicked my legs one way, and I slowly spun round until the cord straightened out and the parachute caught.
Oh gosh, I think I'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. And the worst thing is they record it for you on a DVD as well. So I've actually got the DVD of me nearly dying as well, just if I want to watch it back at any point.
So glad nobody recorded my incident on set.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd be in court if they'd recorded your accidents. Paul,
No,
I am not going to allow you to talk
sir.
about your business. I'm going to give you one time. So whoever wants to take it's up to you. You've got 1 minute. Pitch me simple security. Whoever wants to take it, then we're moving on.
Steve, go.
Oh, it's me. Bollocks. Right then. Okay, Jay. Like I said, I've been a CISO, I've been a CIO. I've also been a crisis management and incident response commander, if you will. And I've been through over 70 globally impacting crisis management events since 2018. 72 many. 2 ransomware incidents, life safety incidents, active shooter here in the United States is a term. It's a thing. Shouldn't be. The key thing that brought me to focus is what matters. The foundational elements of cybersecurity or security in general, the fundamental blocking and tackling to prevent breaches, mitigate impact from incidents. It's expensive and it's complicated. And businesses of all sizes are impacted by it. It's not just something that affects big corporate enterprises. So after many years of doing this, leading it, working with vendors, as you said, CISO Society, several thousand CISOs around the globe, big global community, you just boil it all down to what actually works. It's the same as martial arts. I'm a former martial artist. So what works? What's most effective in a fight? Those are the things you remember. Those are the things you train and you repeat and you build repetition. It's the same with what we're trying to do here. We're democratizing enterprise level cybersecurity for businesses of all sizes, for giving you a full security stack and compliance stack for less than the cost of a Starbucks coffee bill every month. And that's the difference that we're trying to make.
Strong pitch. I like it.
Good pitch. Love that.
The audience heard it, and I'll give you a shout out at some point later, but we're going to move on. Here's my question, though, and this is my premise. I've met a lot of founders, and I've watched them at various stages of their career and their founding journeys. I've talked about when they want to exit and how soon it's going to be. Now, Steve, you've had a number of leadership positions, and I imagine that you don't need to start another company. Simon, you've been from riches to rags and back again. You've both built and been part
still a bit raggy, if I'm honest.
You know what's funny? My daughter's horse, when she goes horse riding, is called Rags, and it's just reminded me. You said you're still a bit raggy that you might be like a horse, but that's everything. But it's why do this to yourselves, to your families? Like, why?
Do you want me to go first?
Linstead question, yeah. I'll
go first. I think we've got slightly different motivations that end up being for the same reason, and I'll try and explain what I mean by that. So for me personally, I'm a builder. I always have been. So first job from leaving school for me was selling mobile phones when they were this big, and I did that self-employed, and I've built 6 businesses throughout my 50 years on the planet. And for me, the most exciting part of the building is of a business is that building stage, that first 2 years of pain that you were mentioning earlier. I love it. That's the bit I love. And Steve and I have been talking for a long time about how he sees the industry and how I, coming from a regulated financial services background, see the industry through the lens of a previous business owner. And ever since I've been in this 5 years now, since I've joined the industry, the one thing that's always stuck in my throat is that small to medium businesses just are not served by the wider cybersecurity community at all. There's some token efforts by some companies to tick a box and offer some stripped down services, but there isn't anything that caters for them. And for me, I'm 50. This is my last hurrah, and I want to make a difference. And I want to make a difference not just to the industry, but to the wider global community, and when it comes to safety and security as well. So that's my why. Plus, I'm a masochist and like the pain.
I'm going to poke before I let Stitch speak, because you know me, I'm never going to let you get away with an easy answer that sounds like you've got a podcast. That all sounds very humanitarian and lovely, but why really, right? It can't just be because I want to go and help all these small businesses. Is this because you want to build a financial legacy for your family, for your future? Is this because you want to build a reason on your gravestone? Like that, for me, I think I hear a lot of people say every cyber founder says it's to go and solve this problem in the community, in the wider thing. But I always think there's got to be a deeper motivation to why people put themselves through pain.
I'm happy to dig into that. It isn't the money, believe it or not, at all. I realised there's enough people watching this who know my background. I realised a long time ago that money wasn't the most important thing in my life. And whilst what I want on my gravestone is, I told you I was ill, other than that, I think I do want to leave a legacy where I've actually made a difference and helped people, rather than he's the bloke that built a business up and made a load of money. That genuinely isn't what I want. I've gone from being a very self-serving person for most of my adult life, and the last 4.5, 5 years, I've probably been the happiest I've ever been and the poorest I've ever been through points of that. And it's because I've spent my time helping other people. So it's purely selfish. It gives me a lot of joy. That's the honest answer.
All right. Interesting. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Stitch, I'll give you a chance to, why are you different? You told me, like Simon said, you have a different reason. What's your reason for wanting to start? You've already started a lot of companies, so why start another?
That's great. So I've been, after exiting my last full-time role, and I've been the head of function, head of security, CISO, whatever you want to call it, different titles, same job, for a big public company, all the way up to like 160,000 employees as a company that we then exited. And then you've got to put it all in context, I feel, because what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. I've done consulting and advisory work. I'm an expert witness. I'm heading up to DC next week to record a deposition. And why am I doing all that? Like Simon said, it's not just to get paid. Obviously, we all like getting paid to a point because we've got bills to pay. But it's about making a difference. Simon hit it in a nutshell. So my reasons aren't that much different. But for me, it's because I see a lot of grandstanding in the cybersecurity world from vendors, from practitioners, from leaders. And it frustrates me. And I'm
Define grandstanding. For our audience,
it's a lot of ego stroking. Vendors will stroke egos. They'll offer you benefits. They'll give you as many pairs of free socks. They think they're a centipede. I think everybody thinks that a CISO is a centipede because they've got so many feet they need 1 million socks.
Not to mention tumblers, right? I think we've got cupboards of hundreds of tumblers at this point in our lives.
Socks, tumblers, you name it, T-shirts, and then steak dinners. I mean, it's no wonder that CISOs have a blood pressure and cholesterol problem. It's because of all the steak dinners they eat. This is not going to make me popular, Jake, but to be fair, that's one of the things I've always been, a little bit punk rock. I truly believe in doing things differently, making a difference and doing things differently. And as Phil is saying in the chat, it's all about the swag. It is all about the swag. And if you're part of a highly regulated industry, you can't do this if you're part of a government entity. You can't do this if you're incredibly regulated because it's considered bribery. Why is it different in the cybersecurity world, right? And that, unfortunately, is where we are. And there's a lot of that in our industry, and I'm saying in our industry in general. And the grandstanding is around the chest-beating, saber-rattling, CISOs that then, they bemoan and complain where they report to in an organization, and woe is me and the chief scapegoat officer crap that you hear a lot. And now CISOs are taking out insurance policies to protect themselves against liability in the event of a breach, because post-breach post-incident or post-breach litigation is such a massive thing that CISOs are now protecting themselves. Protecting themselves from what? From themselves, because that's the issue with fraud and making fraudulent statements of how chest-beatingly great you are, is that if you then get breached, everybody turns around and says, wait a minute, you said you were great. Oh, sorry.
Can I just pick up on something there that's really important?
Go ahead, mate.
But we are going to have simple security SOCs, right?
I guess we have to now, don't we?
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody.
You've got a good colour scheme for it, to be fair.
Nobody will buy our products if we don't have socks. I mean, that's what we.
That's right. And the other thing I just wanted to say quickly is, for some reason, my Restream Studio isn't functioning properly, so I cannot see the chat. So if anyone's put anything in there, I
everybody's
apologise for
agreeing
not
with you
replying.
about free socks. Is everything?
Yeah. So far, the only comment that's of interest is some random LinkedIn user who said Simon's going to be Richard Branson in 10 years. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. I'm not really sure at this point.
I think I'll be dead in 10 years. I've got about 5 left, I think.
So can I
go on.
Sorry, you lean in and you say, I'm going to pick that apart. I'll pick up something that Simon said, because Simon said in one of his motivation pieces. So I'm here because I'm here to make a difference, do things differently. And that's why I'm starting a business, especially at this point in my life. And that's why I'm just trying to make a difference in the world to the small businesses that we all trust with our data, with our lives, with our well-being, with our community, right? If we can't make a difference to the communities that we live in, then we're part of the problem. And bear in mind, I speak from a shaky foundation of the fact that I am a 50-odd-year-old white guy living in Florida, of all godforsaken places on this planet. But I'm in Tampa, and people say, well, Tampa and St. Pete, that's not really Florida. And I'm a member of the LGBT community, and so it's the worst place in the world to be for most people right now. And that's the difference that I'm trying to make, is to democratize cyber, is to give the rest of the world and the community a voice and the protective controls that everybody wishes they had. And Simon turned around and said it's his last hurrah because he's 50. I'm older than Simon. I don't consider this my last hurrah by any means, but this is what is going to be my focus now, to try and build something that leaves the world in a better place.
Yeah.
Well said.
I like it. I want to pick up on. I referenced you in a talk the other day, Stitch. I said, he often says he's punk rock. I said, I am indie rock if Stitch is punk rock. Instead of a pure anger and aggression, I ran into elegance and storytelling.
Indie rock and roll, brother. I mean, that's a whole thing we could talk about, right? I mean, yeah.
I then used the Arctic Monkeys to teach about fishing for like half an hour. But anyway, so I think, look, we could go. I've had this conversation so many times now, and I agree. I think the CISO role is convoluted, and I think if nothing else, I'm vulnerable and authentic. I think when I got into the industry, I was willing to go to anywhere and say anything to try and build a brand and a reputation. I've got to a point now where I know who I am, I know what I say. Like, I'll turn down dinners if I'm irrelevant to you, and if I'm not going to be your buyer, I don't want to be there. Like, don't waste your money. I'm a vendor. I understand what that money means. I think we also have to try and be better in the fact that as soon as someone has a breach, we're all on the bandwagon that they missed it. Whereas I'm now like, well, actually, I probably missed quite a lot of stuff myself in my time. Like, I think we need to be more real and authentic and transparent. I think also there's this problem that CISOs came so quick to the table that most of them aren't exec worthy. Like, there's all kinds of ethical questions around VC backhanders and investments in equity, and how people handle themselves from an executive comparison to, say, a CFO and a CISO there's a whole wormhole of conversations there that I think are worth having and having had multiple times. But I wholeheartedly agree with you. I like the make a difference piece. The question I've got on one side, and then the follow-up to the next piece is, one is, so you talk about kind of serving the market which isn't served, but is it not served? If you look at two competitors in the GRC space, Drata and Vanta, they're built to solve GRC for SMBs. That was their pure go-to-market strategy. There is other companies similarly in the MDM space or in the EDR, who were built purely for SMBs. So there is companies doing this. So is it fair to say that it's not like it's an underserved market? Is it maybe more the fact that it's hard to gain visibility, or is it the knowledge to the CISOs? Like, what's the part that's missing?
Do you mind if I jump on that one, Simon?
Go ahead.
Please.
And just Mr. Linstead, for your information, a LinkedIn user, I wish I could see who these LinkedIn users are. LinkedIn user says, "Sod ethics, go gung ho." I'm not that guy. I am. I've been told I've been told that I have a very strong moral compass by my leadership in, like I said, big public company I work for. But I was fortunate because I've had some very influential and much wiser than me leaders and managers and executives in my life and my career that have shown me the way. This is the way, right? Because security is a business problem. It's not a technology problem. It's a business problem. And IT, if you've been in the IT industry, if you've ever been an IT leader, a CIO, or an IT director or similar, everybody understands that IT enables business. But cybersecurity isn't. Cybersecurity is the white knight complex. It's the hero complex. It's the I'm here to save the company. I'm here to protect the company. I deserve the credit and everything else. But you're not serving the business, and you're not being a business partner, and you're not being a good internal partner if that's your attitude to it. So, like you said, there's a lot of tools and a lot of technologies out there that are focused on SMBs. You mentioned two, which I am actively using in an advisory capacity when I'm working with a fintech right now, which is Drata and Vanta and everything else, right? So yes, there's a lot of tools out there which actively build themselves and are making themselves available to and marketed towards smaller businesses. I'll say smaller rather than small. But here's the kicker. If you're a 50-person, or let's put it this way, if you're a 20-person PR company, right? You may have millions of dollars of revenue, but you're a 20-person organization, and you know about PR as an example, right? What do you know about cyber? And are you hiring a CISO for a 20-person company? Would you go out and seek a vCISO for a 20-person company? Do you need it? If you've no infrastructure, you use SaaS-based services, and all you've got is a handful of people with MacBooks. Do you need a cybersecurity program, policies, technology stack? Would you care, or are you focused on building your business? So most of these tools, Drata and Vanta, if I went to a 50-person company that's mostly third-party SaaS-based, and I said, "Hey, have you heard of SentinelOne? Have you heard of Drata? Have you heard of Vanta? Have you heard of these tools? Would you consider buying these?" You're not going to get through the door. They don't care unless they have a need that's already been identified. But if they get hit by a breach, if somebody clicks on something, takes them out, it's going to cripple them. Business impact, right? Business outages are going to cripple them. But do they build in resilience? No. Why? Because they're focused on running their business. So you can say you have, and you're right, these tools work for smaller companies. They do, yes. Would those companies know about them? How would they find them? What we're intending to do, and the reason we're doing things differently, is we're going to meet business owners where they are today. We're not going to RSA. I can't go to RSA. I'm in Washington. But, we're not pitching to CISOs. CISOs aren't going to buy our product, our platforms. They're not. Who would? IT people would. IT people that are focused on technology that need to do cybersecurity. They understand the need, but they don't want to get involved in the tech for cybersecurity, so they may engage us. That's great. That's a fit. Business owners who are asked to comply with regulations, who are asked to comply with certain aspects that need cybersecurity tools. Maybe their insurance has come to them and said, "Hey, have you guys got MFA? Do you have a SIM? Do you have EDR?" And they're all like, "What the fuck are all these terms? I have no idea. I need somebody to help me with that." The first place they're going to go to is Bob, who does their IT, or something similar, or Sandra, whose kid works in whatever. These are the things that they're going to pull together. Well, that's where we lean in. You don't need that level of depth, that level of experience, that level of knowledge to understand. I can talk to you for hours about ransomware, credential theft, compromise. Nobody cares. If you're a business owner, you don't care. I need to generate revenue. I'm a dog washing business. I've got 15 franchise shops. I need to wash dogs. I'm taking payments. I have details on all these dogs and the dog owners, so I'm handling data. Do I need to know about cybersecurity? Why do I need to know about cybersecurity? Why should I understand what all this means? I know I have to be compliant with PCI because I'm a merchant, but do I need to understand all the ramifications of the 300 odd controls of the PCI DSS? No, I don't. Why? I just need to do my business.
It's interesting. I think you're speaking to a problem which very rarely.
Get off my soapbox now.
It's good because, like I say, I think I want to give you. I get what you want to do, and I think it was important to give you a chance to articulate that you're not just trying to sell. You're not just another MSP to small businesses who need vCISO or tooling services. But then that leads me greatly to my next question, right? You talk about the cost of Starbucks per month. You want to make, obviously, a profitable business. That means you need a hell of a lot of volume. So you come up with this idea. You've either got your ethical, moral, your moral perspective to it, or your legacy, or your financial, whatever it might be, right? That's kind of irrelevant at this point. Next question. For the people who are actually curious, because a lot of people want to be founders. I don't know why, but a lot of people do. Like, how do you go about founding a business? And the second is, how do you go about working out if it's going to work? Because you're going to need a lot of customers to actually really make money. If you're talking about the cost of Starbucks per customer, that's not quickly scalable. So those two questions: how do you found a business, and how do you work out that it's actually going to make money?
Well, you've got to. I'm sorry, Simon. I'll pass this over to
on.
you because I've only got a sentence to add to this. Because I started out by saying, "Oh, I idolized my granddad, and he was an accountant, and I fucking hate numbers." And so now you've leaned into something now which is all about revenue and margin and profitability, and it's all numbers. So yes, I went to school. I got a diploma in business and finance. Skin of my teeth. I've done an MBA. I've gone out and done all these things. And the older you get, the easier that kind of thing becomes because you have life experience. You're not just a teenager who's interested in going out on the piss all the time. You've got to understand the market. So you have to understand, is this something that people need, something that people want? You've got to understand what your total addressable serviceable market is. You've then got to look at all of the relevant components of how do we do this? How do we serve that market? How much is it going to cost us? What's the margins and markup we can put onto volume-based pricing that we get from vendors and partners that I've been customers of that I now want to use within our platform and our stack? And then you decide, well, we want to make this amount of profit, so which means this amount of margin. How many customers do we need to hit this amount of revenue target? And we're lucky. I've done this, managed a multi-million-dollar cybersecurity budget, so I understand all of that rudimentary. We are working with a CFO that was the former CFO of ReliaQuest, so he understands our business. He validated our numbers. You'd be very surprised that we don't necessarily need a ridiculous volume of customers to be able to turn a profit, even though we are democratizing this to the point where, for the sake of, like, let's say $30 a month. Sorry, I'm in America, so I was talking dollars now.
Don't worry
but for $30 a month, which is less than what my son spends on coffee, then I can provide you with an end-to-end full security stack, full compliance stack, the likes of which I used to spend $250,000 on when I was with a 500-seat fintech. All the way up to multi-million dollars when I was with a big global public company. It doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be effective.
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly because you're right that the numbers are small, which is why whilst we will intentionally small, whilst we will sell direct to consumers, the model is partnerships. And I think when you look at running it through a partnership model, which we're in the process of signing up partners, and we have been the last few weeks before we launch, because that's where we believe the business is going to grow. If we can provide them with the service that they need and take that headache away from them. And when I say partners, it's not just MSPs, it's security consultants, anyone who deals with the consultancy side who doesn't want to do the tech stack. There's a massive opportunity for it. And we did a lot of research before we decided to launch. So we spoke to an awful lot of people to see where their pain points were and what they'd like to hand off to someone else. And based on that feedback and based on the conversations we've had over the last few weeks, we're a little bit excited. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we know the message resonates. We know that the difference we're trying to make seems to align really well with the need that's out there. I've spent years working from the if you will, working from the inside out as a cybersecurity leader. And then, working from the outside in as a consultant and advisor. And now, I hear the pains. I hear about tool complexity. I hear about the expensive pieces of it all. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do now, Jake, more than anything else, is just to turn this relationship-based model that we have, because I'm a people person, Simon's a people person. We're built on our relationships and our partnerships in the industry. And if we've got enough friends in the industry, that means that we can deliver that to organizations, to consultants, to anybody. I mean, truly anybody, without chasing around after 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 deals. Then if we can do that, then we know we can make a difference. And so far, the conversations we've had, the message we've got, the technology that we're using, which is tools that everybody's heard of. It's not like we're using stuff that isn't there. And LinkedIn user over here says, simpler the tool, the more effective the compliance. I would say the simpler the technology is, the less complexity there is, the less vulnerability there is. Risk is just uncertainty, right?
I guess the question that is, you've got an idea, you validated that there's appeal to it, right? You've run the numbers to make sure it's not going to cost you more than it's going to make you, so it's profitable in theory, right? How do you start?
Yeah, we've even built in margins for those partners. So it's like even at that level, we've still built in margins for anybody that brings us business.
How do you actually start a company though? You just go like online, register a domain, and sign a piece of paper. Like, how do you go and found a business?
Well, you can. Is that the right way to do it? Data, Jake. I would say data. I'm a data-driven guy. My OCD won't let me be anything else. I need structure and I need data. I was told earlier in my career not to have an opinion, but to always come at things from a point of data. And so that's where we've based this. I would recommend anybody goes out and does their research. As Simon and I have said, we started this business, like you said, going out registering a company, blah blah blah. We have legal registered entities in the US and the UK. Eventually, we're going to have one in Europe as we bring Europe online for our business pieces, and then Asia. Because we think of this like a global village. We don't want boundaries. Again, punk rock aspect of boundaries are a human construct, right? We put these fences around ourselves, locally, in our houses, in our communities, in our geopolitics, right? It's crap, right? Be more Bill and Ted. Be excellent to one another. That's the piece, right? So for us, we want to remove that complexity. We want to remove those barriers and come at it from a point of data. So research, data. We started this in September. We're here in April. We've been soft launching. We haven't fully launched yet. We're not fully public and selling our wares, out there, because we wanted to do it right rather than doing it fast. So for us, it's been a slow boil, right? It's been like cooking a potato. You don't dunk your potato into boiling hot water and expect it to taste like it would if you just started with cold water and brought it to the boil.
Cooking
that's
tips
where we are.
Here. Start the water cold.
Potato. Yes.
Simon, I've got a question. You said earlier that you're like an inherent builder, right? And I get that. And I think I've met people who are like that. Do you think anyone can be a founder, or do you think it's a mentality that you're either built with or not? Like, is it a genetic predisposition?
I think the answer is yes, anyone can. And the biggest lesson I learned in business through my own arrogance and stupidity a number of years ago is that you've got to surround yourself with the right people. So a founder will have a certain skill set. As long as you surround yourself with other people who've got the skill sets that you haven't, then yes, 100% anyone can do it.
So you've got to be really vulnerable in identifying what you're not good at then to be a successful founder.
I think so. Yeah.
If you're in the stage chess beating world, you're doomed to fail because you can't acknowledge your own weaknesses.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen chess beating arrogant pricks succeed. I'm not going to say it's not possible.
I've seen them get into government positions. Oh, right.
Anyway, thanks for your time today.
I made that reference in Texas last week, and it went down like a lead balloon.
I bet it did. Yeah, I bet it did.
It wasn't the best one. Let me ask the reverse of that question. Are there people or mentalities or attitudes that should never become founders? Are there people who you just like, this is not for you, sunshine?
Yeah, I think I know people who got no aspirations to do that. One of my good friends has been a carpenter since the day he left school. And 10 years ago, I'd look at him and think, John, why don't you want to, why don't you have your own business? Why are you working for someone else? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, because he's happy doing what he's doing. And I think if you're content doing what you're doing, I mean, like you said at the start, founding a business is not easy. And it takes a certain kind of masochist to enjoy doing it, I think.
It's the middle masochism, I always think. The founding, it looks exciting, but like I said, I've worked with tonight. Our CEO, Yair and Rui anecdotes are brilliant. Like, they're genius examples. I'm sure the first couple of years were super exciting. We're now in that period where we're like, the exit's a few years away, the founding's a few years away. It's like that scaling bit, which is painful. Every decision has consequences and everything's hard. Like, it's that bit where you just like, and I see them working like 20 hours a day, and I'm just like, this is that bit where you're probably like, I don't have the excitement energy here. I don't have the visible like multi-million exit or problem like world-changing solution here. I'm just here, and it's just.
I think the hardest bit of any founder's journey is going from founder-led sales to sales team-led sales.
Yeah,
and that's the bit that I see. No matter of the industry or the business type, that's the bit that's always hard, and it's brought me to my knees on a couple of occasions in the past. But again, it's at that point where you need to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then you need to find other people who are good at the things you're good at, so you can step back and do more of the bird's eye view stuff than that hands-on tool selling things every day, because you just can't keep growing it like that.
Yeah. I think that's the same for any leadership position, is being a founder, because we're not talking about being a business owner. You're explicitly saying being a founder, because a business owner, I could be a one-man band as a business owner, right? I'm a doer at that point. I am a single contributor to my business as a sole trader or anything similar. But as a leader, which is what a founder is, your goal is to build something that is profitable, that makes money, right? You're talking about being in business. You're not talking about running a charity. You're not talking about, you're talking about business. So as a founder, your goal is to make money. Maybe it's to meet the needs of your investors. If you've got investors, I mean, we're bootstrapping everything that we've got so far because that's how we've
we haven't got socks yet.
And that's why we haven't got socks yet.
I've battled with many aboard to know that bootstrapping is probably a good way to go.
Yeah, and that was the advice that I got from my former CFO at the fintech I worked for. She advised us a lot, and when she looked at our operating model, she said, "Why do you need to chase investment?"
Yeah, I've done it both ways in the past, and the investor thing's lovely, especially the honeymoon period where you're getting to sign the deal and there's champagne lunches and lobster, and then it's fucking spreadsheets every Friday and having your pants pulled down.
Well, also you control. You relinquish your ability to make decisions that strategic based on the fact you need approval and agreement across 5 or 6 people who have very different opinions on what they want.
And I think because we're not completely financially motivated, Steve, it'd be difficult to find an investor who would align with our ethos.
Yeah, who equally is as we.
And that's where I was going, because as well, the thing about being a founder and building a business and therefore employing people and growing your team is it's all about culture.
Yeah.
And that's critical, right? You come up with your idea of what your mission is, your vision for the organization and for what you're trying to do, your values, mission, vision, values, all those pieces. But that means nothing without execution. And to do that, if you hand the reins of your company into somebody else that doesn't share that and is purely financial balance sheet driven or is growth driven or whatever it may be, that's okay as long as your culture doesn't change.
Which it probably will.
I'm fortunate to have met and worked with CEOs and founders of organizations or CEOs of organizations. The big public company I referenced many times in my history, because I was with them for 25 years, was a family business that was global, right? It was a multi-billion-dollar family business. And that whole thing about, it's a family, it's bollocks. It's not really. You're being paid to do a job and you're doing that job. But you spend a lot of time in security and IT and operations and building a business with the people you work with. And in doing so, you have to have an affinity for them. And as a leader and a founder, you have to care. Yeah. And if that goes away, if that culture shift turns into a numbers game, and then you start attracting asshats that are only focused on numbers and don't give a flying F about anything else, then where are you then? Where are you in your founder's journey then, when you've just sold out a balance sheet for the sake of people's lives. Simon said money doesn't matter. It's not the most important thing. He's right. Health is the most important thing. That's a totally separate origin story that we could all go into, right? I'm missing so many parts of my body and my functions, and I've been a survivor of life-threatening illnesses. You start to realize that the only thing that matters is your health, because without your health, you've not got anything else.
I like that. I've got one more question and my final random question. Simon, this last question for you. When you start a business, you both talked about scaling and building and creating like environments and families and culture. When you start, do you have in mind how big this is going to be, or do you start and scale and just it grows organically? Do you sit there and say, we're going to build a 10,000 person business across every country in the world? Or do you sit there and go, we're going to start doing this and see what happens?
What's the quote? Best laid plans go to waste. I think it's all very well having long-term plans, but we know how quickly this world changes, geopolitically, markets, economies. We've got an idea, but we are very malleable on how that changes and how that grows. So I think being adaptable and flexible on that vision is probably the most important thing you can do, because it's going to change and you're going to need to change it. That's my answer.
Bend like a reed in the wind, crouching tiger, hidden dragon. Richard Branson. I mean, you referenced Richard Branson, saying Simon's a Richard Branson. Richard Branson's quote, from his very first day as an entrepreneur, that's the mission worth pursuing in business is to make people's lives better. That's Richard Branson. We eat a lot of Chinese food in my house, as it may not surprise people. My wife being Chinese, but Panda Express is like the Burger King of Chinese restaurants. They'll hate me for saying that, right? Or the McDonald's of Chinese restaurants over here. It's fast food. It's fast Chinese food. But their motto is, I think, is wonderful, which is make those who are near happy, and those who are far will come. That's like the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Kind of like build it and they will come. I like it.
All those things together. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Do something that people want, and if you do that, then there's your demand, there's your supply-demand piece. You don't need to do anything else.
I like it. We're well over time. We could carry on rambling for ages. My random question that comes from a prior guest comes from a member of the CISO Society, which I like this one, actually. The question is very straightforward. It's not hard. Pirates or ninjas?
First, Simon.
Pirates or ninjas?
Well, considering I used to work on a pirate ship and have a gold tooth, that's an easy one. Pirate all day long.
Stitch, pirates or ninjas?
I love that.
Well, it's
okay. I'm a good guy, right? And pirates and ninjas are both bad guys. What can I do? So if I was gonna do anything, I'm gonna be a ninja. I'm absolutely ninja.
Do you know why pirates are called pirates, though?
No.
Because they are.
That is the best place possible to finish this podcast. Thank you, Stitch and Linlow. We will see you soon. I appreciate you both. Good luck in your journey. I'll be watching and cheering from the sidelines.
Appreciate it. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers.